Hey everybody, welcome to Local Business Hacks Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Case, and I'm on a mission to help you. Every week, we're going to be talking to local business owners and experts to get their best tips, tricks, and hacks to grow your business. This show is designed to teach you, inspire you, and motivate you to take massive action and start to build your future-proof business. Whether you're just starting off or you're taking your existing business to the next level, this episode is for you. So let's get started. Hey, local business hackers. I'm your host, Director of Global Business Development for Referrizer, joined today by Nick Greer, founder and CEO of Built Brands. Nick, welcome to Local Business Hacks.
Let's go. Listen to that energy, man. You got energy. I love it, Carl. Let's go.
Yeah, man. I'm beyond excited. As you can tell, I'm passionate about what I do. But tell the world, who are you? Why are you on this podcast? And how did you get to this point in your career?
I don't know why I'm on this podcast. Maybe you're super desperate. Who knows? Oh, man. I am a father of 7 kids, 1 grandchild, the happiest man, luckiest man, most blessed man on the earth. You know what? It's been a crazy, crazy ride. We built this company early on, and it's only been 4.5 years now, just under 4.5 years. But we never thought we'd get to this point. I mean, at this point, I guess this quickly. But man, I don't know. What do you want to know? You tell me.
Yeah, tell me about your past that drove you to create what today is Built Brands, and then we'll talk about Built.
Yeah, you got it. Past, super fascinating. Started many businesses since I was 8 years old. I mean, probably selling, I say probably because I don't want to get in trouble, but selling fireworks illegally in Arizona, baseball cards, lawn mowing businesses. It was like anything and everything I can get my hands on to try to figure out how to make an extra buck, but also to try to meet a need that was out there. And early on in college, right when I was married, we started a new business called One-on-One, and we owned about 7,000 web domains, web properties. Started with $2,000. That's all I had. We got down to $126 in our bank account. And I remember I had 2 little kids, and I was going to Costco like every other day, getting free samples and a $1.50 hot dog just to stay alive. And I remember my mother-in-law, like, she saw me twice in a couple of weeks at Costco. And she's like, she goes to her husband, my father-in-law. And she's like, John, I am worried about Nick. I think he's constantly at Costco and they may not be eating. And we were down to $126, but not once, Carl, did my wife ever ask or doubt what was happening, nor doubt in my abilities and in what was going to eventually become a very successful business. And I'm telling you, having that partner by my side with total confidence, building up my self-assurance was hands down one of the greatest blessings, and she will always be the greatest blessing in my life. So we built this company, and several hundred employees, multiple locations, generating hundreds of thousands of leads, driving traffic to these different sites. So we understood how to convert traffic. And we ended up selling that company off to a couple of private equity groups and left. And I thought I was done at 33, 34 years old. I'm like, I'm retiring. But no, after 2 weeks and gaining like 15 pounds, I'm like, I got to get off the couch and go do something. And golfing every day is not going to hack it. So we actually started investing a ton in real estate and in about 26 different businesses. I taught entrepreneurship for 6 years at BYU, Brigham Young University, and absolutely loved it. Loved being with those students. But man, my craving for getting into the business and starting something from scratch again was just itching like crazy. So we started a software company that's still running right now called Scipio. And it's an awesome business for a texting platform for businesses. But then lo and behold, a family created this bar that was called My Snack Bar. And they created it for what was soon to be an Olympian long distance runner. And they came to their next door neighbor and said, buy this recipe off of us. And he bought it, but he came to me and said, I need to borrow some money. So we eventually became partners. I say eventually within like 7 days. And then eventually, just a couple of years ago, we bought him out, but we just have been growing this brand. I'm super grateful for him, my old partner. I'm super grateful for this family that created the original bar, but then we have expanded off those formulas. And now here we are talking to you, Carl.
That's awesome. And Nick, for our listeners that have never been to built.com or tried a Built Bar, talk to us about what that is.
Yeah. Long story short, people say, do not get into this market, they told me it's too competitive. It's too crowded. Have you ever been to Amazon and seen how many different players are out there? And I said, yes. And they said, guess what? Well, they actually asked me a question like, well, what's your differentiator? What makes it so different? And I say, you wrap your lips around this bar and you tell me what's different. And as soon as they do, they're like, what is going on? This is not a protein bar. This is a candy bar. And especially our puff that we have, the Built Puff bar. I'm not kidding you. It tastes like a candy bar, but you don't get sick in the gut afterwards. So I would just tell you, we always tell people, experience Built, and you tell us what you think the difference is.
I love that. And for people that are trying to experience Built, what's the best way to do that?
You know what? We are growing, expanding. Walmart, Sam's, some of the Costco's, local groceries. I would tell you the best flavors, built.com. You can go to built.com. I don't know. This sounds like this is like an ad pitch. I'm not trying to pitch this as an ad, but truly, I mean, I guess you told me to wear something. So I wore actually this. I'm like, I'll flash the logo across the screen. Why not? But, you know, easiest way, sometimes it's free shipping and you go on our site and we have launched 130 plus flavors and bars in the last 4.5 years. Insanity, maybe a little stupidity at the same time, but we've done it. We've done it.
Well, congratulations to you and the whole team over at Built. Nick, transitioning a little bit from being a serial entrepreneur and learning tons of lessons throughout this journey, I can imagine that your toolbox has got some pretty neat tools in it. So if you don't mind, share some stories with our listeners about what are the stories that really taught you these tools and these hacks that you now have in your toolkit?
Yeah. You talk about tools and toolbox. It just reminds me of my kids. I'm always complaining, where are my tools? You guys, you're taking them. And now my son-in-law is taking them. I don't have any tools left in my toolbox physically here at my house. But it's funny because just last week I was thinking, I got to replenish. And you know what? I guess you could tie that into as far as these business hacks and these tools. You're always replenishing. There's never like this one or two tools that you're like, that's all I go to. You're constantly finding new tools, new hacks, new things to put into your tool belt, your toolbox, or whatever it may be. I would tell you grit and finding momentum and finding those little wins, those little successes. So for me, when I find something that it's like, wait, there's something that's kind of working there. What is it? You exploit it. You actually pour gasoline on it. I don't mean to sound cliche, but when you see something working, you put that pedal and push it to the metal. And you do everything you can to say, how far can we drive this? When we used to drive leads and drive traffic, we started creating all these different landing pages. But what we always found, it was our go-to control landing page that was super ugly. That was one of the very first ones we created that always converted. And sometimes you have to just realize, wait, I know we keep trying all these new things, which you have to constantly be doing. But sometimes going back to the basics, going back to what's just normal or what maybe seems boring, but yet it's working, you go build upon that as much as you can. And for me in a business, that's what I'm constantly trying to find are those simple little wins that I can go and build upon.
I love that. And Nick, do you have some examples of situations that you've done that with?
Yeah. So as far as Built is concerned, when we started seeing that people wanted new flavors, and we started seeing that we were driving new additional customers because of those flavors, because ambassadors of ours were getting excited about this additional content or something new, a new message they could share. We realized we had to figure out quickly, okay, how do we actually not necessarily have to have all these additional SKUs always in our toolbox, right? But that we could actually then go build a new flavor profile and generate new buzz. Because for us in a business, especially in the CPG space, you've got to constantly create buzz and that momentum so the word of mouth continues to spread. And we talk about things going viral. Well, for us, it's like, oh, how do you actually create those mini viral moments, those small viral moments? And so for us, it's always, well, how do we change the bar? How do we change the texture? How do we change the flavor? How do we put a topper on it? How do we make it smaller? How do we make it bigger? And so it's like for us, that's what we're constantly doing at Built.
That's awesome. Nick, shifting gears on a little personal level, what would you say is from an advice perspective for somebody that's looking to jump off into their own career or somebody that has $200 left in their account and they've dumped everything into their entrepreneurship dreams? What advice do you have for somebody?
Yeah. Do it. Do it. And then I remember my son a couple of years back, he goes, well, Dad, what do you mean do it? He goes, I don't know anyone. I'm like, Drew, you just do it. Well, how do I do it? I said, Drew, what you have to do, and going back to what I said earlier, is just go create a tiny bit of momentum. I used to have my students, I would give them a paper clip and I would say, you've got 1 week. It's Monday, next Monday, you got to come back and you've got 1 week to turn this paper clip into something of value. And I've got something for the winner to see the greatest value that you create. And so it was interesting to see how they could turn the paper clip to trade it for a pen, to trade it for a notebook, to trade it for a TV. That we even had one student actually end up getting 2 Super Bowl tickets as they traded up from a paper clip. And so, it's amazing. You think you have $200, well, trade it up. Figure out how to turn that $200 to $210. Just how do you make 10 more bucks? And so sometimes you just have to just go out there and just start doing it. And I would just tell you, do it.
Love that. Nick, when we talk about the health and wellness space and the consumer that you drive to, what would you say that a lesson that you've learned about that demographic has been over the last 4.5 years?
Yeah, it's changing. It's evolving because I think we don't have an excuse any longer to say healthy has to taste nasty. In fact, we had a billboard up here and one of our billboards said healthy and tasty had a baby built. And really for us, we look at it saying, no, healthy can be tasty and healthy needs to be tasty. And so it's like we're finding new and creative, better ways to actually finally make healthy and like an experience to be yummy, to be tasty, to be good. And sometimes we feel like we just have to down it. How many times have you heard in a protein bar, like, oh, I got to put it in the microwave for 12 seconds to melt it down, then I can get it down, or I got to chug down this drink to hurry and get it down. And eventually I acquire the taste. And I tell you, well, you know what? With our products, you don't have to acquire the taste. It is tasty.
Yeah, Lenny and Larry's, you got to take a lesson from Nick over at Built because your cookies are terrible.
I wish you were a little more honest.
I'm being honest. That's always in the microwave for 12 seconds. It's the only way it's edible. Nick, talking about people that are pioneering something in the food space. You're in a very, very unique space. And you alluded earlier that you heard warnings that I've heard, and I think everybody in this world has heard in any industry, let alone in the food innovation sector, which is you're too late or it's already oversaturated. Talk to me a little bit about the thought process that you were going through when, this opportunity presented itself and you're just being funneled by people that you love and care about telling you that, hey, I'm questioning this. How are you not?
You can't fake it. I think sometimes it's like, well, maybe I can fake that it's like good, or maybe I can fake that it's right, or maybe I can fake that it's something that I believe in. At the end of the day, if you firmly believe in it and you're like, dude, there is something unique and different about that, you go attack that. And I would say, if there's something out there that you feel like an industry needs to be disrupted, but it's actually very complicated, or I'm a very simplistic man, meaning I need things in layman's terms. I'm kind of dumb. And so therefore it's like, for me, I'm like, give it to me in layman's terms, simplify this message. And then, oh, I get it. And so for me, it's like, well, if you can dummy down a concept and you can actually communicate to the masses where the masses are like, I get it. It's simple. Like, why not? Then it's like, you may have something there, but also you've got to believe in what you are creating or what you're building. And so for us and for myself, I always look at it, I can't fake it. I can't be like, well, mom, you're going to promise. And if my mom has to like force it down and she has to force herself to say she likes it, then maybe don't do it. And so maybe do the mom test, let your mom taste it. And she's like, oh, it's good, sweetie. Cara, I like it. No, you know what? Maybe go to a complete stranger after that. Maybe don't do the mom test because they're always nice to you. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that one, but you just can't fake it.
I know my mother listens to these and that she's definitely a very honest woman. So in my case, I could definitely go there. But yeah, get feedback from your friends because and actually get feedback from not your friends, people you totally don't know. And shout out to your mom. Holy cow, whatever she says, listen to her, Carl. All right. It's working this far.
All right.
Awesome. Nick, talk to me about professional mentors that you've had throughout your career, or people that you look up to, and maybe some books that have inspired you along the way.
Yeah, I know it's a great question. I'm constantly studying, constantly trying to learn, constantly trying to surround myself by the very best. In fact, I was with my brother and I took him to a golf trip with a bunch of my buddies. And afterwards, he's like, Nick, holy cow, your friends are so incredible. Like, I feel lifted up when I'm around them. I feel so much better, and I want to go home and become a better father, a better husband, a better boss, a mentor. I'm like, Spence, the key is in life, you've got to surround yourself by the very best. And don't even take it for granted, but also don't cut corners when it comes to that. And you say professional mentors, I would tell you your best of people that you surround yourself around, or the best of individuals, are only going to be your professional mentors. And if you surround yourself with just people who are professional mentors in your industry, that's okay, but that's only like a part of the battle. I would say you surround yourself by the very best of individuals that morally make you better, that physically make you better, that emotionally make you better, that spiritually make you better. Because when you do that, holy cow, you want to become better, and then you're finding ways to go lift up others around you.
I love that answer. I am a huge Tony Robbins guy, and that is one of the practices that he preaches. It's incredible. Nick, what are like a couple of your favorite books from the past, and what are you reading now?
Oh man, one of my favorite books is Shoe Dog. Phil Knight, Shoe Dog, read it 4 times, love it. I'm like, holy cow, absolutely love it. Gap in the Gain, it's a new book I'm reading. It's a fantastic book. Man, what's another book? I'm going to pull this up right now because there's been one recently, and I'm like, that was an awesome book. You got to read Gap in the Gain, by the way. How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen. That book puts things in perspective for me as far as like what's most important. Because in business, sometimes we feel like that becomes the most important thing in life. But I would tell you, one of my heroes was Clayton Christensen. He passed away a little while back. But when you actually can focus on what is most important, what's truly going to measure your life and how you're going to leave a legacy, like I want to be able to read books and content and information and articles that are going to help me become a better me. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to become a better me within the business I'm in, within the industry, whatever it is. But you've got to, not to be Stephen Covey on here, but you got to sharpen that personal saw constantly, right? And I'm always trying to find books that allow me to do that. Here, another one, the one I just finished was The Ride of a Lifetime, Robert Iger, Disney. That was a pretty cool book to hear the history. I love reading stories of how businesses were built. I love reading case studies on how businesses are built and then figuring those things out. That was my favorite class in college, was strategies, because of that. But I always try to find autobiographies, biographies, and stories on businesses.
Well, then with the biography side, I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite movie?
Oh, shoot. Don't do that to me. I do love Rudy. He's become one of my good friends, the real Rudy, over the last 8 years. But man, because I just love the story, the grit, the fight that this walk-on had. I don't know. What's your favorite movie?
Well, I always go back to Robin Williams just because his authenticity and great acting skills. I would put it Mrs. Doubtfire probably, and the ability of somebody to play multiple roles when it comes to their family is definitely up there.
I can see you playing that role actually, like on Broadway or something. I can see you pulling that off.
Too many people say that I'd be a good actor. I don't think I would be, just because I tell it how it is, and I can't try to be somebody that I'm not. But I'll take it as a compliment.
Total compliment.
I would say, aside for Mrs. Doubtfire and Flubber being on the list, I would put Inception as my favorite movie.
Good flick. Interstellar was one of my favorite movies. I love that movie. Good movie. You say Inception makes me think of that, but Blubber, did you really say that?
Flubber.
Oh, Flubber? Oh,
with Robin Williams.
Yes, that movie. No, listener, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we could watch it together online one time or something, and we can do a commentating. We can commentate on it.
It's been about 20 years since I saw it, but yeah. Awesome. Nick, I want to ask if you don't mind sharing a story about what it was like going from Built being a recipe that was acquired to now being able to say, yeah, you can find us pretty much anywhere. And then you drop the largest wholesaler and retailer in the world, Walmart. What was it like, taking Built from a concept to now a household brand?
Well, I mean, I appreciate you saying a household brand. I don't feel like it's a household brand. I mean, we've got a long, long ways to go. That's one of my greatest strengths, but it's also one of my greatest weaknesses. I feel like it's never enough. And I think as an entrepreneur, you can feel that way a lot. And you've got to really, and that's why that book, The Gap in the Gain, really helps you figure those things out as far as, okay, we as entrepreneurs are always thinking about the gaps, like it's never enough. And then we got to really look back and look at the gains of everything, of where we've come from and where we're at today and where we're going tomorrow. It's pretty cool. I was on a remote island last week, actually. And this lady, she actually broke her femur. And so we brought her in and placed her down. And we're like, we need a doctor. We need a doctor. It's a remote island. And this lady doesn't even know me. And she's with all of her friends, but I'm holding her head. And she tells me, do not leave my side. And so as I'm sitting by her side, a doctor runs up. He's like, I'm a doctor. And he stands next to her like, oh, that's great. And her leg is like total bent like this. And as I'm sitting there, he's telling me he's a gynecologist. I'm like, oh, you're okay. That'll work. I mean, I guess you can give her a pap smear.
Better than nothing.
What are you going to do here? But, and it was good. And he was great. What a great help he was. But he's like, what do you do? And he's from New York City. And I'm like, I just had a little company. It's called Built. He's like, Built? What do you mean? I go, it's a protein bar. We do it. He goes, Built Bar? Oh my gosh. My 2 daughters, they're in high school and junior high. They love your bar. It's in our pantry. They love it. I'm like, how cool is this? I'm in the middle of the West Indies on an island helping this lady. He's from New York City. And he's telling me my 2 daughters love your bar. I thought I got to remind myself that, yeah, it's out there and there are people learning about it. And that's pretty cool. So Nick, you got to celebrate those wins. And it's fun to celebrate those wins. But I will tell you, like getting to Walmart, I'm like, well, how do we make it better? Like, how do we do more? How do we become the number 1 selling product in their entire store? And how do we become true partners with them? And it's like just being up on their shelf. It's like, that's first check, but man, we got 99 more checks to go. And that's how we are with all of our partners and these suppliers or vendors and different wholesalers and resellers. For us, it's like, no. Like we always want to be improving. How do we improve with you? So it's part of our mantra, part of our culture that we have.
And that's why Built continues to grow. And I think that anything that you touch is going to hopefully get there. It's amazing. Nick, congrats to you and congrats to Built for getting to this point. We're beyond excited to follow you on your journey. And thanks for coming on and sharing on Local Business Hacks.
You're awesome. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you so much. That's it for this week's episode. I hope you found it helpful. Be sure to head over to our site, local-business-hacks.com, to check out the show notes and send me questions or ideas for future episodes. If you want to grow your business, just like the people you've heard from here, follow Local Business Hacks Podcast and tune in for new tips, tricks, and tactics. Until next time, thanks for listening and keep hacking.